All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have Karla Bensen here, and I can't wait to hear your story. I don't know much about you. I know that just based on your Instagram profile, three-time Ironman, one-time Ironman champ, and you are a coach as well. So
I am.
I think we have a lot. Just that is a lot to talk about right there. How are you doing
Yeah,
today?
I'm good. Thanks. How are you, Adam?
I'm good. I'm good. I just got back from a bike ride, so I am feeling good right now.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. What was your workout today? I'm guessing you did something.
Yes, I did a little bit of a dog walk. I'm still recovering, so we'll dive into it, but I did run the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim.
Mm,
It'll be 2 weeks tomorrow since that. So I've given myself 2 weeks off to recover. So I went for a little dog walk this morning, and then I am going to teach a spin class later tonight. So I'll get the legs and the blood flowing with that.
nice.
But just slowly starting to get back into activity again, give my body the full couple of weeks to recover from my big adventure.
Well, that's smart. Most people don't do that. That's good.
I've realized that this was my first ultra marathon that I did, the Grand Canyon, and that I realized it's taken a lot longer to recover than more people give it credit for, just with regards to kind of a deep inner kind of like fatigue and catching up with energy expenditure and calories and whatnot. I'm still feeling some of the effects from that. So I was like, all right, that's why I'll give myself the big 2 week break.
Yes. Yeah, I've noticed after I run ultras, after maybe a week or so, it's like my legs feel pretty good, and as I'm walking around the house, I'm like, okay, I'm back to normal. And then I go out for a little run, and 2 miles in, I'm like, whoa, wait a second, okay, there's soreness way down deep in the muscles that I'm just. So yeah,
Oh,
you got
yeah,
to take that time off. So good on you.
absolutely. Yeah.
So do you live the endurance coach life? Like, it sounds like you teach a spin class. So, you roll your eyes as I say that, but like, I'm kind of in the same boat where you almost have to have a couple of hustles going on to make it all work. Is that sort of the boat that you're in right now?
That is the boat that I'm in. So it's one of those things where I've actually just created a business myself called Elevated Endurance. And it is a focus. It is endurance coaching, but it's also, I do strength coaching for endurance athletes because of my background of Ironman, fondos, kind of some more of those in marathons, half marathons, all that kind of fun jazz. I dabble in a lot of things. Triathlon is my background. But what I do is I have realized that strength training is so important for athletes and especially endurance athletes, but there's always kind of the gap between understanding of what endurance training looks like. And then if you try and connect to a strength coach, it might be some bodybuilder or some like yoga instructor or some kind of mix of one or the other, and they don't quite understand again the fatigue or what it is like, what you are putting your body through as an endurance athlete. So that's my main focus now. And then again, I like to stay connected in the community with I do teach a spin class twice a week. I do go to run groups as well, dabble in a few other areas, just more for fun and connection as well to the community.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you got to get out there. You got to meet people. You got to get outside the house and be in the world to
Absolutely.
keep the business going. So say I am a potential client and I'm
Mhm.
coming to Karla because I want to, I don't know, get in shape, or I have a race later on this year, or I want to do the rim to rim to rim. What does a coaching plan, whether it's training plan or actual coaching, what does that look like coming from you on your end?
Absolutely. So again, there's different avenues where I'm based out of Vancouver, Canada.
Oh,
So I do kind of in-person training, but I also do virtual training as well, whether that be via kind of Zoom or FaceTime or something like that. But I also do kind of on paper structure wise, with regards to kind of the whole program. So if you're just looking for strength training, I can do that. If you're like, hey, I know strength training is important and I am working towards a marathon, again, I know the difference in kind of how to balance where to put in the runs, where to put in the strength, what to focus on with previous injuries or whatnot, and kind of finding that balance and periodization throughout the whole year or upwards of a couple months beforehand, things like that. So there's different avenues depending on where you are, because luckily right now we can work virtually and internationally, which is nice. But also if you're in the Vancouver area at all, I would be more than happy to work with you in person.
Nice. What does an in-person workout session look like with you? Are you in the gym with someone and watching their form as we're working on strength training stuff, or what's that like?
Yes, absolutely. So I do work out of a gym in Vancouver. And so it would be an hour-long session where you do come in. I would lead you through some things. I do some programs where I do have a program where you'd come in for an hour. I would be able to kind of assess how your body moves. And then on top of that, what we do is we'd actually go through the workout and I'd be able to watch your form, give you any keys and kind of cues and suggestions of ways to make sure you're doing it correctly. And then you would have a 4-week program that you could do on your own. So it's kind of a one-time meetup and then you can do it on your own time. So it's not necessarily just one-on-one. And then I have a few clients who I see once a month and they come through, we run through the whole next program as they kind of come into their next training cycle, which I can pair with as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you see them once and then you send them off with 4 weeks worth of workouts.
Yes, but it's one of those things. So that one time I see them, again, it's not necessarily like I'm running through the workout with them. It's a lot more regarding to technique and form and structure and making sure that they understand. So when I'm not there, that they're like, oh yeah, I remember to push my hips a little bit further back in a hinge motion, or I should be feeling this in my bum or my thighs, not necessarily one or the other, my knees or something like that. Yeah.
And then virtually, say I come to you and I want to run the rim to rim to rim in 6 months, but I've got a little bit of athletic experience. Like I've got a little bit of running background. I've spent some time in the gym, but I'm not super strong. What would that look like?
It would all start with a kind of a Zoom consultation first, so I could get to understand you, kind of what life looks like. And then from there, we'd have to try and find a meeting point where it's like, where can I meet you where you're at to build up that base? Again, making sure it's progressive overload. You can handle it with kind of your daily activities, kind of your daily schedule and whatnot. So your body doesn't get injured really quickly off the bat. Because if you're just saying, I have 6 months to go, I'm kind of athletic, I'm kind of fit. And then to throw you into a training program right off the bat, your body kind of may not be able to handle that load. So again, it is a little bit of building that base, which I'm sure you know as being a ultra marathoner. It's like you got to take the time to build the base slowly, let your body adapt to the requirements that we're asking of it. And so from there, then again, if they are at the gym, I can do a session with them or like virtually. I do have some people have gyms at home, so we kind of train in their gym at home as well, like again, virtually. So it is a kind of personalized one-on-one situation, but if they are interested, we can call, meet, and find a route that works for them.
Okay. So you will virtually work out with someone. Like, is that over Zoom? And you're like, what does that look like? Because I've thought about doing that as a coach and I've never really pulled the trigger on it. Like I have clients that live in another state, and although we talk virtually a lot, I've never worked out with them. And some of these clients I've been training for well over a year, but I've never worked out with this person. And I've thought about just setting up a Zoom and setting up the cameras and we can just work out together. How do you make that? How do you do that?
Yeah, so it's one of those things where I've had lots of practice with the pandemic for doing things virtually. And through trial and error, it's one of those things you kind of like, again, once I get to know them, I know what their space is like. So they might tour me around their space, see what equipment they have. And from there, we can figure out what we can do with what they have. I necessarily won't be working out exactly with them because I'm more watching their form, watching their technique. And also I might have different equipment than they have as well.
Right.
So, but what that looks like is mostly Zoom or FaceTime or other options as well, and kind of set me up. I'm in the corner and you might adjust me left and right if I can't see you. But again, it's me directing you through that hour-long session.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. What happens if a client comes to you and says, I'm really fit. I've spent a lot of time in the gym and doing endurance sports, but mentally I am weak. I don't have a clue where to start. I don't do any visualizing. I don't see myself finishing the race that I'm signed up for. Do you work with people in that sense at all?
Not specifically in just kind of that almost seems around the idea of yes, mindset and sports psychology, not just specifically with that. I do kind of interlace that throughout various sessions and throughout the clients I do work with and athletes I work with. And it's one of those things where I do ask the questions of like, okay, like have we start to visualize what the race looks like, asking those questions. And then from there, I can kind of again weave through what the where potentially the client might not be having that connection just yet. If they have worries or things, definitely listening to what their worries are, talking through it. Let's say you're like, I'm signed up for this ultra marathon. I can't see myself finishing. It's like, okay, well, let's work back. What can you see finishing? Starting from like the morning of, can you see yourself putting on your shoes? I'm a big visualization person. So like, what are you going to have for breakfast? What are you going to wear? Let's already have those things planned out so you don't have to worry about that. And then you can dive into what are you feeling before race morning? A big fan of, again, visualizing throughout the race, let's say in this situation. And then from there, I also try and before the race, I like to do at least a phone call, like a day or two beforehand, to again, talk through what is their game plan. You should already have your race plan down by that point in time, but also what are you going to do in the case of something doesn't go your way that you didn't visualize or you didn't plan for? Like, what are kind of some backup, either like mantras you say to yourself, if you pop in some music, that's another thing. Or like, I'm a big fan of quotes. So it's like, I write quotes on my hands, or like, what is something that you can think of to kind of put at least one foot in front of the other. Again, you have to, through working with individuals, you get to know them and you can kind of figure out what works. Because again, each person and each body works differently than other ones. And so you can kind of dial it into that specific client.
Yeah. Yeah. How long have you been coaching?
I just started my business in July, but I have been coaching for 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
What made you want to start a business?
I really found that disconnect, like I said, between strength training and the endurance world. And again, with my experience of my 3-time Ironman, and again, all those like fondos and long-term kind of races, like I am in that position where I can connect the two. I've been in the fitness industry again for 5-6 years at this point in time. So it's been various things of group classes or personal trainers, or again, spin instructors. So I've learned a lot through that. But again, the endurance community is something that I've always been really passionate about. And again, I can see there's a little bit of a disconnect between endurance athletes and strength trainers. Like I can bring those two together. So that's where the idea kind of connected.
Okay. And I'm asking all these questions because I'm personally interested and I'm a coach as well. And sometimes I have clients come to me with weird situations, weird, whatever. So say I come to you and say, I don't like the gym. I don't like strength training. Are you the wrong coach for me?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I'm definitely I will incorporate it gently, just because I will also talk about the benefits of it. And I'm sure as a coach yourself, you know that there is benefits to strength training, whether it be injury, resistance, all like resistance training. There's so many benefits to it. And it's one of those things where, again, meeting the athlete where they're at, where they're like, you know what, I can do a few lunges while I'm waiting for my coffee to brew in the morning. Cool. Like I will take that. I'll take it and run with it. If you don't like the gym, again, we can always modify with what you have at home or what you have time for, or you can connect with that, but that's not necessarily, that is a main focus of mine, but it's not my only focus with my business.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And are most of your clients triathletes?
No, I have some cyclists. Do have some triathletes, and I do have some runners. So I kind of dabble in all of them.
So all across the board.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool. Did you grow up in Canada?
I did not. So I'm originally from Seattle, and I moved up to Canada about 4 years ago.
Oh, what prompted that?
Change of scenery for the most part. I'm also a dual citizen. So I have a Canadian passport, and I've always wanted to live in Canada.
Nice. It's
Yeah.
pretty beautiful. It's pretty awesome up there from what I understand.
It's the Vancouver area is an endurance athlete's dream with like world-class trails for mountain biking and trail running up here. We have great on-road rides as well. And there's so many mountains to climb, hikes you can do. You can bike from here to Whistler. It's a outdoor enthusiast kind of mecca up here.
Seattle's pretty cool though, too, right?
Yes.
I mean, I've spent a little time in Seattle, not a ton, but obviously Mount Rainier's right there. There's a lot of trails in the area. Is it a good place to cycle as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've spent more time road biking than I have mountain biking. But the whole Seattle area is very bikeable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And so you've been in Canada for like 4 years, you said. How did you get into this crazy world? Triathlon is your main sport. Yeah. How did this all come about? How did this start? Were you athletic in school? Did you have parents that were athletes?
I was a competitive swimmer growing up. So my parents both grew up in Canada, away from the ocean, and my mom cannot swim. So she threw my brother and I into swim lessons when we were young, and then wanted to make sure that we, again, knew how to swim. So swim lessons turned into swim team, which turned into competitive swimming for 13 years. And then I was going to swim collegiately. Unfortunately, the school I went to, I tried to walk onto the team, but that didn't work out. So I was like, hey, I've always wanted to try a triathlon, join the triathlon club. And that was just a whole new world of sports, which I loved for those 4 years. And then after graduating university, I took all my graduation money and I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to try an Ironman. So I took all that graduation money, used it for race entry, and started training for my first Ironman in 2015.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Did you do any shorter distance triathlons before that?
Oh, yes. So again, throughout the course of the 4 years, it was like sprint, Olympic, half distance, like 70.3 distance. I even did some like super sprints, some draft legal work as well. I have kind of experience throughout the board.
Okay. So you didn't jump into Ironman green like I did. I've done a couple Ironmans. It's been a while. Ironman eventually led me to trail running, which eventually led me to ultra marathons. But I wouldn't say I'm a good triathlete, or for me, it was just like, I wonder if I can do it, you know?
Yep.
And swimming was always my weakest of the three disciplines, which it sounds like you having the swimming background, lucky you. I mean, you already knew how to swim. So then it was biking and running. That sounds way easier. Like I knew how to bike and run. I didn't know I could swim, but I sucked at it, you know? So it sounds like you had a leg up on me there, but I just sort of jumped in like, I wonder if I could finish this thing really naively. It sounds like you took the smarter approach.
A little bit. I'm very much one to kind of make, I was going to say like safe. I don't want to say safe decisions, but I'm almost the opposite of you where I'm like, okay, I can start a triathlon, like totally fine. Like swim, great, bike, hold on, run. We'll see what happens. Like at that point in time of the race, we'll just see what happens.
Okay. Yeah. See, I'm like, just get me to the run. If I can make it to the run, I'll finish the thing.
Yeah. Mine's like running on. It's like, we'll just run for dear life and see what happens. See what happens.
Okay. 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 So, after school, after college, you started doing triathlon. Is that right? Is the timeline right there?
So during college is when I started triathlon. After college is when I started Ironman. And so I was doing Ironman for about 3.5 years there afterwards, where it was my main focus.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And Ironman, obviously that's a big thing you're signing up for because you have to sign up a year ahead of time. I think that's the way it is for all Ironmans. It was for me. So yeah, for my Ironman, like I did the Madison, Wisconsin Ironman. So I had to go volunteer 1 year at an Ironman and then the next morning show up and sign up and give them the credit card and then I'm in. But I have a year to train. Is that how all Ironmans are?
For the most part, yes, that's from my understanding, where it's one of those things where some Ironman are quite popular and the registration priority, there's a little bit of a priority list where if you do the race one year and you want to sign up for again next year, like you get top priority. And then from there, the volunteers get the next priority. Sometimes with that, the race fills up. Otherwise, if there is space available, then it would open up to the general public. That's my understanding.
Okay.
So I did something similar to you where I went and I volunteered at Whistler, Ironman Whistler in 2014. And then I competed in 2015.
Okay.
To make sure I had a spot.
Yeah. And what were your thoughts when you were volunteering and looking at all these crazy people who are, you know, running into the middle of the night? You know, I just remember looking at these people like, these guys are like gods. They're like Superman. Like, I can't believe this is real, you know? Were you thinking the same way or?
A little bit. I mean, I've seen the broadcast of the Kona Ironman, the world champion ones for so many years. Right. Okay. And I was like, oh, that would be kind of cool to do. And then when that kind of led to, well, if you want to qualify for that, you got to do one beforehand. And I do remember that I was volunteering and I remember standing on the shores race morning. Again, this is the year I was volunteering, but I was standing on the shores and you saw all the athletes in their wetsuits come into, I believe it was Alta Lake up at Whistler. And it's like the sun is barely coming over the mountains, but you see all the steam rising up from the water and they let up the canyons, they ready to go. And I had the biggest goosebumps on my arm of excitement. And I was totally geeking out I had two friends who volunteered with me. And I was telling them all the details of what the distances were. This is what the course was. And they were like, okay, Karla, we're just up in Whistler for a weekend and sure, we're going to volunteer versus I am like, look at these people and this is how they're racing. It's like, there's just so much excitement to it all that I was like standing on the shore again, the cannon went off and I had the race morning goosebumps. And then in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm going to be here next year. And yeah, the rest
so it was just calling your name.
Yeah.
You knew it. That's cool. That's so cool. What did you study in school?
Kinesiology.
Oh, kinesiology. Okay. Okay. So, and then, okay, I'm just trying to put this all together. So I'm trying to paint a picture for myself. Oh,
yep.
You got a dog, buddy?
Yep. Amazon's delivering a package. So,
that'll do it.
Hear our doorbell.
Nice. Okay. Okay. So, what did that year of training look like up to your very first Ironman?
It was a lot of work. So again, it was right out of college. I went to school in California. And so I moved back home to Seattle. So that year first year out of college, I was trying to find my footing. I'm going to kind of paint a picture where I was looking to go into physical therapy school. So I was gaining a lot of experience at various clinics. So I was working two various jobs, one at a clinic, another one, I believe I was lifeguarding at the time too, or teaching spin classes. I was volunteering at a hospital, again, to really get a lot of clinical experience. And then on top of that, training 20, 30 hours a week. But what that looked like for me was swimming 3 times a week, running 3 times a week, cycling 3 times a week. And then that adjusted as well as kind of training progressed, where you might throw in a brick here or there on Saturdays and Sundays, and adjusting accordingly. There was a little bit of strength training there at the time. Again, with regards to my first Ironman, it was all about just building up that base of aerobic capacity.
And did you have a time goal right away for your very first Ironman, or were you just trying to finish?
I'm going to be honest. I was very bold and I wanted to qualify for world championships. Okay. So I knew I had a rough time and I looked at the previous year's times for my age group and it was roughly going to be around 12 hours. And so I was roughly planning for that. And with that, again, a lot of the visualization that I was talking about during my training, where I'm like, okay, my swim should be about this time, my bike should be about this time, runs this time, again, roughly, which also kind of evened out to the paces I was training at anyways. And then, yeah, that worked for the most part upwards of race day.
Okay. And you qualified in your first one?
I did.
No doubt. Wow. Yeah. Okay. And with swimming as your strength, were you going for a certain swim time? I
I
mean,
was going for under 60 minutes, so
oh,
under an
okay.
hour.
Okay. See, again, that was my slowest one. I'm like, if I can finish in an hour and a half, we'll call it good. Okay. So you're going for under an hour. So that's, to me, that's hammering in the water.
Yeah.
And then like training for an Ironman, the bulk of your time is usually on the bike. Is that how it was for you? Were you putting a lot of miles in?
I was. So again, being up in the Pacific Northwest, we can't necessarily bike outside all year round. So there was a lot of time on the trainer, especially during the winter. And then once kind of spring came along, then I was able to bump outside. But again, the majority of the my bike training was maybe about anywhere between an hour and 2 hours during the week. And then again, once we were out onto the kind of longer rides, that would get upwards of 6-7 hours with the training rides on Saturdays during kind of more closer to peak.
Yeah. And had you ever run a marathon before your first Ironman?
No.
Okay, so you're one of those crazy people. This was your first marathon.
So there's like a fun story where I've only run marathons during Ironman. I've never run a solo marathon.
Oh, really?
Until I was training for the Grand Canyon.
Okay.
This year. So it's like I ran my own marathon by myself, and I was like, cool, no medal with this one, but
Yeah.
I
Nice.
ran a marathon.
Okay. Is running your jam, or is it just kind of the sport that is on the back burner, or what's it like for you?
It's very much more on the back burner, just because, again, with my background of swimming, I'm more of a fish. So I'm not very coordinated on land. Okay. So that was the only sport I got slightly injured in as I was kind of getting started. And it's one that's taken some time and some effort to find my flow, to really kind of work on my gait a little bit, see how my body does react to it. But throughout all this training, I've learned to love it a little bit more. And from Ironman to then working on trail running this year for the Grand Canyon, I've learned to love it even more, because it's so cool to be able to move somewhere on your own 2 feet and like find a view or meet some other people, or it's a great community connect to connect to with.
Yeah. It really is. When I discovered trail running, it just opened up a whole new world to me. And I feel like that's probably what you're going through right now, maybe.
Absolutely.
It's like, why am I spending all my time on the roads? This is where it's at.
Right? Like, and it's one of those things where it's just, I don't know about you, but the trail running community is like, yes, we can very much be like hardcore and going for it, but it's also like, oh, here's a waterfall. Let's stop, take a photo at this waterfall too. And it's just so much more enjoyable than pavement pounding, I'm finding.
Yeah. And not to dog on Ironmans or triathlons too much, but like I would go and do one of those races and barely talk to anybody throughout the day, because everyone's so focused on themselves and their splits, and there's just not a lot of talk or chatter or friendliness going on. But then you sign up for, and I've said this on the podcast a zillion times, and then you go to an ultra marathon, like a 50K or something, and you come away with 5 new best friends. And, a decade later, they're still my best friends. I'm still in contact with all these people. It's just way more friendly, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I've had similar experiences. I've had great training groups with my Ironman. I have joined a couple of different triathlon teams throughout the time. And when you do find a good training partner, or again, a group to train with, that makes the experience better, especially if you see them out on the course. I try and be friendly on the course of like, hey, let's take a moment and look at what we're doing. It is actually pretty cool, but there is a lot more focus, I will say, with everything in triathlons or Ironman than on the trails, where it's much more relaxed, very much friendlier. Yeah.
Okay. So you qualified for Kona.
Yes.
Did that change anything in your mindset? Did things get more serious after that?
A little bit. So again, Whistler was in July of 2015, and then Kona was in October. So I only had about 10 weeks to kind of flip around into another one.
Dang.
Yeah.
Okay. 10 weeks. Okay. So, I mean, that's possible for sure, but that's a little bit of pressure.
It's a little bit of a pressure. So I had about, again, 2 weeks to I had like a week after Whistler to kind of calm down slowly, kind of get the body relaxed again. And then I had another 2 training cycles to go through. So it was like this fine line of having to pick back up, not quite do full peak, but still get up there. So my body was ready to do the marathon and ready to do the 112 miles on the bike, and then come back into a full taper again.
Okay.
To prime for Kona.
And then tell me about your Kona experience.
It was a whirlwind of emotions. It was amazing to be there. The entire community of an island of Kona in Hawaii, when I was there, was just, they treated every single age group athlete just like a pro athlete. And it was the spirit of the community, just like with the whole build up to race week, it's hard to find words, but it was just magical for the most part. Kona experience started off strong, and then started off with a strong swim, was holding, I think I was holding top 5, top 7 on the bike. And then I ultimately I crashed my bike at mile 80.
Oh no.
Someone in a aid station, as I was going threw their water bottle under my front wheel, and I flipped over my handlebars.
Oh
yeah.
Did you get pretty banged up?
I'm decently banged up, not too bad. I was very lucky with only kind of leaving with some road rash and dropping my chain. So I didn't have a flat tire at all. I was able to finish the bike and ultimately finish the race, but was banged up, and that kind of affected my run a little bit as my body kind of started to seize up a little bit.
Yeah. And if it happened at an aid station, I'm guessing 1 million people saw it then.
Oh yeah, I just remember flipping over the handlebars, and then I kind of opened my eyes and I was looking at the blue skies, and out of nowhere, you just see this NBC camera come into scope. I was like, if this is my 15 seconds of fame of me flat on my back on the highway, I'll take it. But I'm just like, this is the one moment you catch. Okay, sounds good.
How much did that slow you down, do you think?
It slowed me down for about, I'd say 5 to 10 minutes. Not too bad. I hopped up pretty quick. Again, luckily I was at an aid station. So someone ran over some water, and I quickly washed out my road rashes, was able to kind of put the chain back on my bike and refill my water bottle. And I was moving pretty quickly. Again, when you're in race mode, you never quite know how long something takes. It feels like 2 minutes, but I'm sure it's about 5 to 10.
Okay. And then you put the run together somehow, even though you're a little scraped up?
Yep.
Okay.
Put the run together. Again, I'm very pale from the Pacific Northwest. And so fully 2nd degree, blistered sunburns everywhere, made it through. Again, was a little bit more stiff than I wanted to be. So I think it wasn't a best time with my Ironman experience, but I did finish, which ultimately by the end of the day, that was very much a just finish full experience.
Got it.
Enjoy the experience race.
But it's still freaking Kona. I mean, come on. It's still Kona. You still did it.
Yeah, it was a wild time.
I mean, okay, so in the big scheme of things, times don't really matter. The time of your Ironman, most people don't really care. 98% of people just, they know that you finished and they say congratulations. They don't care what your time was. But what was your time at Kona? Do you remember?
I think it was 12:33. It was one of those things where I was doing well. Again, the crash kind of broke everything up. And then obviously with that, it didn't hit quite my run paces that I wanted to, but I think it ended up being 12:33.
Okay.
So it was actually my slowest Ironman time. But it's one of those things with any Ironman, each race, you never know what's going to happen. Each race course is different from one to the other. You never know what the weather is going to be like. So it's anytime you finish, it's an accomplishment.
Yeah. How did you feel afterwards? Did you feel like you kind of got ripped off and you were, because the crash slowed you down, or were you just elated to finish the thing?
Both. It definitely had me coming back. I'm definitely interested to go back for more. But after the crash, I was kind of angry until I got into T2. And then the run, I flipped the mindset around where, yes, I had certain times in my head. And then I was like, well, that probably won't happen. So it's like, let's just enjoy the experience. So again, like as you're running through through various neighborhoods and you see like the little kids clapping on the side of the road, or like the families who have their hose out spraying, you like go for it. Or like going into the energy lab, they were giving out glow sticks and there's a dance party. There's a DJ out there at this point in time of the night. So it's like, okay, let's just go for it. Let's enjoy the experience now.
Yeah.
And that's also like a different tactic for racing, but it also makes it really fun.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Okay. And then eventually you were an Ironman champion. And so
Yeah.
I'm trying to work my way to that story, but I don't know how this goes. So, okay. So you finished Kona, and then what happened after that? I'm
So the
guessing.
Ironman champion came through actually at Whistler. It's an age group champion, but I had to win my age group in order to qualify for Kona. They were only giving away one spot in my age group. And so that's where that came through.
Got it. Got it. So that was your first Ironman?
Yeah.
Oh, got it. Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've done 3 Ironmans though.
Yep.
And so what was the third one?
I did Santa Rosa in 2017. So I took a year off after doing Whistler and then Kona. I took a year off, did just some 70.3s, some smaller races, a couple of half marathons, just to kind of take a break mentally and physically from the demands of racing. And then I dove back into Ironman racing for 2017. And I competed at Santa Rosa in, I believe that was July, August or July that year.
Okay. And so it seems like you're spacing your races out in a healthy fashion. You're not just cramming tons and tons of races in throughout the year, which is tempting to do and sometimes fun, but also can wreck your body. It sounds like you're being smart and healthy about it, but there's some time in there. Are you also running marathons or doing bike races or swim races, or what else is going on in your life?
For like 2016, is that kind of what you're aiming for?
2016 and even after 2017 up to the rim to rim to rim, like what else are you up to in life?
Yeah. So 2016 was actually a year, again, that was more of a mental health year where I did a lot of traveling actually. So I was able to travel to Antarctica with my dad. I was able to travel to Europe to visit my aunt at the time. That's another aspect of my life that I very, very much value. Again, 2016 was filled with like 2 70.3s, 2 half marathons, spacing it out as well. Yeah. And then 2017 did Ironman Santa Rosa. And then I was actually kind of the lead up to the Grand Canyon was I went hiking in the Grand Canyon with some friends from university in 2018, where we hiked the South K-Bob Trail down to Phantom Ranch, spent the night, and then hiked up Bright Angel Trail the next day. Again, enjoying just time outdoors for the most part. But as we were hiking down, again, I was kind of looking for what my next kind of challenge would be. Yeah. Because again, half marathons, they lose their kind of magic after a while. And an Ironman, I was like, okay, we'll see. I'm not quite fired up for that just yet. But I saw, as we were hiking the Grand Canyon in 2018, we saw some runners. And I think at one of the places you could fill up water, I was like, happened to strike up a conversation. I was like, what are you doing? And they're like, oh, we're running rim to rim. Or we bumped into another group. It's like, we're running rim to rim to rim. And so here I go, like, ooh, there's a sparkle in my eye. And I turned to my friends like, who would want to do rim to rim to rim? And they all just go, immediately no, Karla. But I had this sparkle in my eye and I was like, I'm going to do it. Why not? And I thought about it for the weekend when we were camping. And again, that was 2018. I was supposed to do Ironman Penticton in 2020. Obviously that got canceled and postponed and whatnot. And with the pandemic, I was like, I need something to challenge me. I need something to work towards. What's on my list that isn't necessarily a sanctioned race that can get canceled at any time? I was like, you know what? I'm going to do the Grand Canyon. Let's go. And so that's kind of where it led me to this year.
Nice. And so that was your first ultra marathon.
Yep.
When did ultra marathons come into when did you find out about ultra marathons? I'm always curious about how people discover ultras.
So I started to learn about trail running. My brother also lives in Vancouver as well. And I started learning about trail running because him and his wife kind of did a couple of local trail runs up here. And then they started doing kind of 50Ks and kind of starting to get into the ultra marathon with that aspect. So I kind of knew through them, But then there was a few YouTube videos that I really dove into, like learning about like Dean Kanaskis and like Jesse Itzler and some of the things he's done. And then eventually you kind of learn about like Badwater and Leadville. And you kind of slowly start hearing about those stories with like David Goggins or Jesse Itzler again. And then like Courtney DeWalter. And then you kind of see little YouTube documentaries on them or little biographies about them. And then you start reading books. And so it's kind of just like there in the back of my mind, but I didn't really dive into it into this year.
Okay.
Or last year, technically.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I don't know how to ask this. Are you obsessed with running now? Are you obsessed with trail running now? Is this like kind of taking over or not quite that much?
It's getting there.
Right
now, the blisters on my feet from the Grand Canyon are still a good reminder of like, maybe not yet.
Yeah.
But again, I will say I am starting to transfer from road running to trail running. Absolutely. Yeah. It's again, much more enjoyable, much easier on the body.
Yeah.
Can be a lot more scenic, again, more friendly, more comfortable. And I've definitely kind of started to look at some races here and there, but haven't let myself register for anything just yet.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
What was the training like for rim to rim to rim? Were you training specifically for that terrain or just the distance, or what did that look like?
Yes. So I knew going into it, my ultimate plan was I wanted to do rim to rim to rim in October, but a few kind of hiccups didn't work out with that way. So I bounced from October till March because I knew it wanted to be cold or colder.
Yep.
And make sure, because again, being the fair-skinned redhead from the Pacific Northwest, like heat and sun don't really agree with my body that well. So I was like, okay, what's a good month to do it? So March. So I knew that, especially with the lead up to rim to rim to rim, this time around, I had to be aware of it's cold up here in Vancouver. It's snowy up here in Vancouver. A lot of the higher peaks and elevation where I could do a lot of training is covered in snow. So it was a big kind of puzzle to put together of where can I get elevation and distance, but also time on my legs and time under tension there. So that's where actually strength training was a big proponent going into this. So like a lot of front squats, a lot of slow eccentric movements to prepare the tendons and the muscles for the time under tension, like going downhill for 8 miles, or again, going uphill and climbing for another 10 miles. But training wise, I was again getting a lot of time on my volume on my legs, where I was biking 2 times a week, running 3 times a week, and then strength training again 3, sometimes 4 times a week on top of that.
Okay.
Specific focus.
Okay. And in March, is the water spigots turned on down in the bottom of the canyon?
Some of them are, not all of them. So we had water at Phantom Ranch, at Manzanita, and then at Indian Garden.
Okay. So that's enough.
Enough.
Yeah. Okay. Both times I've done the rim to rim to rim was Thanksgiving weekend. And I think it was the same thing with the water. It's like they weren't all on, but there was at least 3 different places where we could get water, if I remember right. Tell me about the trip, or the rim to rim to rim. Were you by yourself? Were you with friends? And just, I want to hear about all of it, because to be honest, that's one of my favorite runs. I absolutely love it. And I'm trying to remember the mileage on it. It's like 46 miles or something.
It's kind of a range. It depends. Each person's Strava and Garmin pops up with something different. And sometimes you lose signal halfway. And, so it's about 44 to 46 miles. That's kind of a rough range of everything. And the trip again has highs and lows. It was one of those things where I was going to run it solo, but I was able to connect there's a Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim Facebook group. And so it's like, they're a great resource if you have questions or kind of gear questions. You want to hear about people's experiences, all sorts of things like that. And I happened to post, I'm like, hey, I'm doing it the weekend of March 24th through 26th. Is anyone out there? And there was a group from Houston Striders, who actually reached out and they said, there's going to be a group of 20 of us. Feel free to join. And so I was able to connect with them where I wasn't running by myself, but there was 20 of us, 18 or 20 of us who started on March 25th. And we started together, and then you kind of naturally spread out throughout the canyon. And you also met other runners that day or hikers that day that you would connect with. So I was never actually alone, which was really nice.
Yeah.
Because it's a long day. And if you're by yourself on top of a long day, again, the mental strategy to it was a whole nother factor of everything.
Yeah.
But to wrap up to kind of, I finished in 19 and a half hours. So the day didn't go as planned, but it wasn't because of undertraining or under fueling. It was actually because of blisters. So blisters just slowed me down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then let me ask, what were you wearing for shoes and socks?
Oh, shoes. Shoes. I was wearing the Innovas. I don't know the exact. I can get you that information. I don't know exactly off my head. Or
Innovates.
Innovates. It might be Innovates.
Okay.
And then socks. I was wearing the Injiji 5-finger toe socks.
Okay.
Which
and
I
you
love.
Still got blisters. Yeah, those normally prevent blisters for the most part.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was size of the shoes where they
too
fit.
Big or too small?
Too small.
Okay.
They fit and they're even half a size bigger. But I think between the heat and the volume and then the pitch of the canyon, that's just kind of the ultimate factor that just didn't quite work.
Where were your blisters? Everywhere?
I got 12. So
12
they were everywhere.
Okay. So it's not like one specific place we can hone in on and try and figure it out. Blisters were everywhere.
It was the hardest part was the tops of the toes and then the side of the heels.
Okay.
But it was a weird thing because I didn't have any blisters during training. So it's like I'd run in the shoes, I'd run in the socks, I'd run in the full kit, the full gear and everything. And I felt great, but just happened to be on race day run day that's what was given to me.
Okay. And blisters will kill you. I mean, it sounds like a very insignificant thing to people who don't know better, but a blister will ruin your day. And I mean, one will ruin your day. You had 12 of them.
I had 12 of them. And that was a hard part coming up Bright Angel Trail. I will say that was a big mental kind of obstacle I had to go through. I'm like, do I just take off the shoes? But then I was like, oh, as I'm hiking up, I'm seeing scorpions on the trail. I'm like, maybe not. Or like, if I step on something sharp, what would happen? So ultimately, I ended up cutting the shoes to create a little extra relief and space in the shoes.
Oh, smart. Where'd you cut them? In the back or?
Right along the sides. So It was one of those things where, yes, the blisters were on the heels, but also my feet felt quite cramped at the front. So I totally just cut right along the side to give my feet a little bit more space to kind of spread out too.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
If you did it again, what would you do differently?
Different shoes, potentially. I'd probably potentially work with like the Ultras or the Hokas to get a little bit of the wider foot box. But ultimately it was the hardest thing is like my legs felt fine. My training felt fine. My body felt good. It was just the blisters that ultimately slowed me down.
When did the blisters creep in and start slowing you down?
They started to creep in on the way down from the North Rim, about 2/3 of the way down from the North Rim. Once I turned at the North Rim, I was super excited, had some kind of trail joy, gratitude. I'm like, okay, cool, we're halfway. Let's start running down. I was beat bopping along, like singing, listening to some music. My legs could kind of feel the downhill from the North or from the South Rim that morning. But then as I was kind of like running, kind of power hiking down, that's where I'm like, oh, my toes are kind of starting to hurt. I wonder what's going on there. And then slowed down a little bit and you could feel kind of the pressure of the blisters come in. And then I was like, okay, this is a power hike down. We're being conservative with this. I got to Manzanita, like refilled water. And I was like, okay, we're at the bottom of the canyon. It's hot out. Let's run through this as much as we can. But a lot of people don't realize it's that like 2% gradient down. So it's like, even as I was running through the bottom of the canyon, it was still just enough forward that it was just like hitting the fronts of my toes with every step. So I was just like, oof, that was painful. So it was like, again, a power hiking as much as I could. Tried to run, but it was pretty painful at that point in time until I got to Phantom Ranch.
Okay. And you didn't change socks at all or lube up your feet or anything like that?
I changed socks at Phantom Ranch, tried to lube it a little bit.
Phantom Ranch a second time?
Yes, correct. Phantom Ranch the second time.
Okay.
First time was totally fine. No need to stop and refill water mostly.
Yep.
Second time, put a couple of like the blister band-aids on, tried to protect them as much as I could. Again, swap socks. It was another pair of Injinji socks, which I really enjoyed. Again, that was also probably a lifesaver with not getting blisters in between my toes, which was good. Tried to lube them up, but at that point in time, there was just so much pressure from the fluid of the blisters.
Yeah. That's going to slow down a run.
Yeah. And then it turned into a hike very much.
Yeah.
So on the way out,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, it's one of my favorite runs. There's something really special about that place. And I can never quite put it into words, but it's like when you're in the canyon, I always feel something. I don't know what it is that I feel, but I feel something ancient. I feel something from a long, long time ago, like just some weird energy, or I don't know exactly how to put it into words. Did you have that feeling down there? Like this is really a special, special place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So again, when I went in 2018, I fell in love with the canyon, just like pure beauty. Again, the experience of being able to camp. It was one of those things where you're in awe because every corner you look, you were just surrounded by this huge, naturally created piece of art for the most part. And it's just like, just in total awestruck the entire time I was there in 2018. And ever since then, it holds a special place in my heart. Hard to put into words exactly what it is, but even what you were saying, it's like, I get it. I 100% am on the same page with you for that. And then when I came back this last time for rim to rim to rim, it was also, there's mixed emotions. I got there the day before and I go to one of the lookouts and you see how big it is. And it's like, oh snap, what am I getting myself into? But then you start running and you see like the light slowly coming over the canyon. And again, it's like every corner you turn or like how the light is hitting certain canyon walls. You're just like in awe, at least for me. And was very much a special place. And I'm at a loss for words with how to describe what it means to you, but it's like, okay, like it's beautiful. And then when you're at least, I don't know about you, but at least for me, when I'm running, I'm just like, but Mother Nature again, like she'll show you what's happening, where it's like, oh, this is also a run that is not easy. And no wonder they do not recommend it, but it expanded my comfort zones in like mentally, physically, emotionally more than I ever thought possible.
Right.
So a lot of people are asking me if I'll do it again. And there's 2% chance that I will, but I kind of want to go back.
Give it a couple more weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I know when you finish that run, it almost ends up being like more of a spiritual journey or like a journey inward. It's like once you finally finish that thing, it's like you almost feel like a slightly different person. Yeah.
So it was one of those things where as I was coming up Bright Angel Trail, the sun had set. And so you're only like hiking / running by the light of your headlamp. And so all you can see is the sand and the stone in front of you. And it's when you take out kind of, for the most part, like a couple of senses of vision and the kind of sense of direction, you very much turn inward. Like as the sun was setting, the night was coming up, you could hear kind of like there was frogs starting to cricket and there's some other crickets as well. And like, you could hear some creeks here about, but it's like taking away the sense of vision for the most part. Again, you can only see what was in front of you. That was really interesting. But then after Indian Garden, you're making your way through those switchbacks. It's just kind of like steps and switchback and then steps and switchback. And then you kind of look up and you can see the stars, but you can take your headlamp and kind of look up the walls. And it's just like, you just see wall and you're like, it's endless. And you're like, I have no idea. And that's where it very much turned into a spiritual experience. Like, what is each step going to take me towards? Or like, what is going to motivate me to, again, just keep moving forward and not stop?
I know. I just remember telling myself, we're just going to go up forever. We are going up forever. This is never going to end. This is just my life from now on.
I had so many people afterwards and they're like, so why didn't you stop? And I was like, well, if I stop, there's no way out except to keep going up. Like I can hang out at Indian Garden for a while or hang out at Phantom Ranch for a while, but eventually you need to get out of the canyon.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Did you have a hotel, or were you camping, or what was your sleeping arrangement before and after?
I did have a hotel just outside of the park. So in
Okay.
that little kind of area, I'm forgetting the name of the town, but just outside the park
Okay.
is where I had it.
And
And
then
then
you
my,
could, and then you could go back there afterwards to shower and whatnot. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. That had to have felt good. To have a nice shower afterwards. How did you, I'm trying to think, like, if it took you 19 hours, was there anything open for like food or anything afterwards?
No. So I did have my parents there. They were kind of
Oh,
support crew, and also
cool.
mom and dad were very much of, hey, we want to be your cheerleaders through all your crazy endeavors. They've been there from the first triathlon to the Kona finish line, and they're like, okay, we're not going to miss this finish line.
Nice.
So they were on the rim waiting for me, and I had prepared ahead of time just in case anything was to go wrong. That I had some soup from the grocery store and like a couple of pieces of pizza from the night before, just in case for food. But I will say, like, nutrition was on point, finished the run, like wasn't starving. Like hydration was for the most part still pretty there. Again, it was just the pain in the feet that slowed me down.
Mm,
So
okay.
yeah.
Wow. Um, there was a guy I had on my podcast. Gosh, it was almost a year ago now. His name is Paul Hoogie, and he lives in Boulder here with me. And he ran the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim 10 times.
One after another.
Yes.
Holy smokes.
Isn't that nuts?
That's wild.
Yeah, I had him on the podcast. You may want to listen to it, but as you know, and he's a very, of course, very down to earth and humble guy.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you have to pull these stories out of him because he's not the kind of guy that's going to talk about himself. Just like super athlete and also very humble at the same time. But yeah, he had like an RV set up so that he could get some sleep between laps, and he did it 10 times, and that's longer than anyone's ever gone. And he set the fastest known time on this 10 lap route, which no one's ever done before. I can't remember how long it took him, but of course it was days. It was just insane.
I can't even fathom that. Like, I'm just like trying to like wrap my head around doing it again, maybe next year. Like,
Right.
But like to do it again back to back 10 times.
10 times.
What prompted that?
I'm trying to remember. I think that was that during COVID. I'm trying to remember exactly when that was. I mean, he's a stud athlete, and and I think that was one of his favorite runs, and he just wanted to go far, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I think that he wanted to do something really, really long and super challenging that wasn't really a race, because, you know, you sign up for like a big 10-day stage race, is going to cost a shitload of money. And he just wanted to go and do something on his own. And yeah, I don't know exactly what prompted it, but yeah, I just remember it was just insane just hearing his stories and all the hallucinations he was having. And he was friends with all the rangers by the time he was done, and they were cheering him on, and it was just nuts.
Oh my goodness. I'm definitely going to find that episode because that's inspiring to hear again. Oh my gosh. Wow.
For sure. Yeah. There's crazy people out there, and I love crazy people.
Perfect. Oh my goodness.
So you celebrated afterwards with a can of soup and leftover pizza?
Taking my shoes off. That was the big thing. It's just to take off my shoes. And then, yeah, that was about it.
Nice. Did your parents drive over to the North Rim to meet you?
No. So
Okay.
they stayed on the South Rim the whole time.
Okay. Well, that's probably smart, because I've made that drive, and that drive takes almost as long as it does to run through the canyon. It's
Does
like,
it?
yeah, it's like you have to go way, way, way around. It's so far out of the way. So that's the only reason I was wondering. It's just it's like a 6-hour drive or something insane. So I bet you they were pretty proud.
They were pretty proud. They were actually so excited. So I had a little Garmin InTouch GPS,
Okay.
just because I knew they were going to be on the rim rating for me, South Rim. And so I kept in touch with them a few times. As I got to the North Rim, I texted them. I had service, so I could actually like text out with that. And then I messaged them again with the Garmin at the bottom of Phantom Ranch, just to give them a heads up of like where we were going, what's going on. So I messaged them there, and it was 6:30 p.m. And I told them, I was like, hey, like I'm moving slow, but I'll get there around 10. Like, I'll update you once I get to Indian Garden. So then again, moving a little bit slower than I wanted to at Indian Garden. But of course, my mom was so excited. She's like, we're not going to miss Karla. Just in case she comes up beforehand, we're not going to miss her. So I told them, meet me there at 10. They show up at 9. And of course, I don't finish till 11:30. So mom and dad had gone to like the grocery store and bought like $5 camper chairs. And they were sitting there at the top of the South Rim for 2.5 hours with their headlamps on, just looking at the stars and chatting. But again, like I told you, I was with the Houston Striders, and they knew that there's a big group of us down there. So here you go, you're just finishing this huge day. You're coming up, it's dark outside, and there was probably about 5 or 6 groups ahead of me of just a single runner or 2 runners. And as they had come up from the trail, mom and dad were like cheering for them and clapping for them. And I was like, they don't even know who these people are. Yeah. But to just have someone there to acknowledge what you did, because again, there's no tour buses there at that point in time. Everyone's asleep. But they were little cheerleaders for everyone who showed up, came out of the canyon that day.
Cool. Yeah. So cool. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing, because like I said, it's one of my favorite runs. I love to just go back and sort of relive the memories there. And, although you say that there's like a 2% chance you're going to go back, I don't know. I see it differently. I bet you in a couple of weeks, you're going to start thinking about it again. And it might be a couple of years by the time you make it back there, but I think it'll probably happen again.
Probably. Again, the day before the run, I went to one of the lookouts and I looked down. I was like, wow, the Grand Canyon is really big. It's going to be a really long run. And then like, as I was flying home from Phoenix, we fly over the Grand Canyon again. You're like, oh, hey, look at that. And it was just like, I'll see you again. Like, yep. This is my last time to come visit you. So I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not betting on anything just yet, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Good. I like it. Well, what are you betting on? Like, what's next? Do you have other plans, other races, or anything else coming up in the future? Big adventures?
Nothing just yet. There's a lot of things potential coming down the timeline. Okay. Again, I've signed up for the Whistler Fondo. With that, there's a few kind of trail races later in the season up here in Vancouver area. There's like a 5 Peaks challenge. There's a few kind of alpine medal races up near Whistler as well. Again, I didn't sign up for any of them just yet because I wanted to see how I was feeling after this. Mm-hmm. But there's definitely a few potentials. We'll see if I hit the Ironman circuit again, but I'm not sure about that just yet. Again, trail running and being in the trails right now is very much a priority.
You're feeling it. Yeah, for sure. Well, I would highly recommend it. I don't know many people that have gone from triathlon to trail running and regretted it. Most of them have just gone straight in, never looked back, and just become this crazy trail runner, So yeah, I would say go for it.
I'm looking towards it. Looking forward to it.
Nice. I used to work with this guy who was a triathlete. And at the time I was doing a lot of trail running, and we would always go back and forth about whose sport was better. And we would just talk smack all the time. And I would go into work and he would be like, did you take a crap in the woods this morning? And I'd be like, yeah, it was probably about the same time you were shaving your legs. And we would just talk shit all the time. The two worlds are separate, but they're pretty close as well.
Well, my boyfriend is an Olympic weightlifter. So here he is, Mr. 1 rep max of everything. And then here I am, Miss 19 hours, 12 hours. That's what I call a fun day. And he was just like, where does that go? But it's just like, I understand the difference. We chirp each other back and forth as well.
So you guys are like polar opposites. I mean, he's spending all of his time in the gym trying to get that one heavy rep up, and you're outside going for 19 hours.
I drag him on the trails every once in a while, which he very much enjoys.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's opposites attract. I'm sure you guys balance each other out. That's how me and my wife are as well. We're completely opposite, but somehow it works.
Perfect. Yeah. It's funny how that works out.
Yeah. Well, what's next for elevated endurance? Like if you could wave a magic wand and 5 years down the road, build that thing into whatever you want, like what's the end goal?
Absolutely. So again, right now there's a little bit more building blocks that I am going to be sending out or creating strength programs specifically for trail runners, road cyclists, triathletes, road runners, working on having those to be able to sell. Again, really trying to build up the virtual aspect of things, whether it be um, uh, via Zoom or also via kind of those kind of programs, really trying to work up towards that, but also spreading the word that strength and resistance training isn't detrimental to endurance athletes. Again, there's that big void, and that's typically the first thing that falls off the training program, but it's actually very, very beneficial to add into your training program, time allotting. So that's just kind of spreading the word with that. That's the big goal, is to not be afraid of the weights and the resistance training, because it's actually much more beneficial than people give it credit for.
Yeah, I agree. And there's also people in the camp that say the same thing about stretching and yoga. They say endurance athletes aren't stretching or spending enough time doing hot yoga. Is that something you play around with at all, or where do you stand on the stretching and yoga stuff?
With stretching and yoga, I feel like it has its time and its place, and you really have to look at, again, the athlete individually with what works best for them. I personally am a big fan of moving your body through its full range of motion. So with that, it's one of those things where, yes, let's talk about trail runners. Trail runners are very quad dominant, but it's one of those things where making sure you can squat deeply or lunge to like all the way down to one knee and back and like have that mobility. I find that is my kind of more perspective. So movement is medicine. And there is time and place for more static stretching, not at the beginning of any sort of run or at the beginning of any sort of strength session or speed session, whatever it may be. That's always at the end. So it's one of those things where again, whatever works for the individual, I personally say that moving more, and again, moving through the full range of motion, I find that the most beneficial to everyone.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you and your boyfriend go to the gym at the same time? Do you guys train together at all?
Sometimes, yes and no.
Okay.
He also trains clients individually, so it depends on the schedule. But yeah, it is. Sometimes we do.
I'm just wondering what that would look like, because I'm picturing him as big as like a refrigerator and you not so much, and going into the gym and just going opposite directions.
In like a normal gym, you would typically probably see me like head off to the treadmill and he'd head off to like the platforms or the squat racks or anything like that. When we are training together, we're typically surprised side by side and doing similar things, but different. Again, he's very much more into the Olympic weightlifting. He would love to have me try an Olympic weightlifting meet at some point in time. So we'll see if that's on the docket for things to do in between trail runs. But it's we're both we accept each other with regards that we're doing our own thing, but at least we're still there together.
Yeah, totally. That makes sense.
Yeah.
An Olympic lifting competition, like, is that mainly just like the three big lifts, or like bench, deadlift, squat, or what is that? What are those?
So that's powerlifting, like? Actually. So that's powerlifting is, you do get tested on the squat, the deadlift, and the bench. Olympic weightlifting is more of the snatch or the clean and jerk. So that's the one you actually see like at the Olympics, where they would take the weights, fling it above their head, and then catch it in a low squat. Yes, lots of skill with it.
I can only imagine. I've spent a lot of time in the gym. I don't think I've ever tried that exercise.
I would hire a coach or have someone teach you first.
I would bang myself in the head and fall over and knock myself unconscious, I'm sure, if I didn't have a coach. So
I've had a lot of bruises after I tried to learn, for sure.
So there's a fair amount of trail runners and ultra runners that listen to this. If you could tell us, like, 2 or 3 exercises that you think are the most important. And I know that everybody's a little bit different, and not the most important exercise isn't going to be the same for everyone, but just kind of a broad generalization. Like, say I only have X amount of time every day. I don't have a lot of time for strength training, but I want to get some in that's going to be beneficial in my trail running. What would those exercises be?
I am a big fan of the deadlift or any kind of variation of that, just because that really engages that posterior chain. Again, feel free to reach out to somebody with regards to if you have questions for technique or cues or anything like that. Make sure you're doing it right. But it does really engage those hamstrings, those glutes, the lats. It really gets that posterior chain nice and strong, which is very important for runners. I also love any sort of variation of step ups or lunges or Bulgarian split squats, because if you think about running as well, that is kind of unilateral. So one leg at a time. So that also, any sort of variation of those are another big helpful exercise that helps runners, again, engage each leg individually. And then any sort of core exercise, big fan of planks, side planks, farmer's carries. Those, again, gets the core engaged as well. Kind of finding the tension in the body is a really important one as well. Because if you think about as trail runners, we have to learn how to be fluid, and like our ankles tend to be a little bit looser as we kind of hop over rocks, and you have to be able to shift your body weight back and forth. And so our body has to be really flexible with that. So actually training your body to find that tension with like a compound lift of the deadlift, or also make sure each side is working correctly with those individual like step ups or lunges or lateral step ups, things like that. And then core with the planks, nice and easy, straightforward, but very, very important as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Do you have any of your favorite exercises that you could share with us? Something that you just love to do, or something you're good at, or when you go to the gym, you hit this almost every time?
Oh, I'm secretly starting to love like chin-ups and pull-ups
okay.
and like
Okay.
some upper body work. That's one of my secrets that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
Again, kind of going off trail with not necessarily just working the legs. I do love to work my legs, but also sometimes throwing some upper body strength isn't a problem.
Yeah. I love pull-ups as well. Like, and I don't know if it's my ultra brain, but it's like, I'll try and do as many pull-ups. Like, I'll set a timer for like, say 30 minutes. I'm trying to do like 5 pull-ups on the minute, every minute for 30 minutes or something. And it's
wow.
and it seems like it's pretty easy if you're only doing 5. I mean, for me, it's like 5 pull-ups. I can just knock them out quick. And then I wait for the rest of a minute. And it's not that hard of a workout, but I don't know if that's just like my ultra brain, like trying to make a pull-up workout into a 30-minute workout or what, but no, I love pull-ups. So
good for you. Again,
yes.
It took me a while to get my first one, but they're fun now that I can do them.
Good. I love them. Well, cool. You are on social media? Do you have a website?
I do. So everything can be linked through my kind of Instagram account. My Instagram account is Elevated Endurance.
Any
Website
dashes or anything in there?
I believe it's elevated_endurance.
Elevated_. Okay.
Yes, elevated_endurance.
Got it.
Through the little description bar, you have a connection to my website in there. But otherwise, my email is elevatedendurance.ca. So that's the other thing. But you can not .com.ca.
Okay.
Since I'm up here in Canada as well.
Okay.
But you feel free to reach out on social media. I'm pretty active on that. Or email or anything. Again, all of it's linked through my Instagram bio.
Awesome. Okay. Anything we didn't cover, Karla? Like, what else?
I don't know. I know this is just here. I thought my big rim to rim was a big accomplishment, and then people do 10 in a row. I'm like, you know what? This is just the start of some of the crazy ideas that I have, and maybe I'll just have to dive into some more.
You know, I hesitated to even bring it up because I didn't want to like eclipse your experience with this crazy guy who did it 10 times, but I had to mention it to you because I knew you'd be interested.
No, I'm totally interested. And the thing I find, again, fascinating, especially with the trail community, again, it's so welcoming to everyone, whether it's your first time on a trail and you don't know what to do, or again, you're super experienced and can do 10 of something. There was a lady I was running with, that I met on the trail, and she just happened to watch a YouTube video, and she's like, yep, you know what, I'm just going to do it. And like dove into the rim to rim to rim in one day. And I was just like, what? That's very large spectrum of training and experience out there. And I was like, I was shocked by that. And then also shocked by anyone who could do 10 of them, or again, finish, or even finish under 10, 13 hours. Like the community is so vast with everyone's experiences and their skills. And I'm just really looking forward to meeting more people in the community.
Definitely. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing if you sign up for any ultra marathons, because I think that you're getting the bug. I kind of feel it.
Do you have any race recommendations by chance, Adam?
Oh, tons. Are you kidding me? I live in Colorado. I got nothing but recommendations.
Definitely shoot some of those my way, because I have always had a nice interest in Colorado. And I think for a trail run would be just a perfect excuse to come visit.
It's beautiful. There is the elevation thing you kind of have to worry about, which isn't necessarily a deal breaker. In my studies, I learned that it's best to come out to a race 10 days early to acclimate, or the night before or the morning of the race to trick your body so that there is no time to acclimate. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's either come out a few days early and acclimate, or come out the morning of the race and just go for it.
Yeah. Oh, it's like the safety way, or just the kind of trickster way. I love it.
If you were to sign up for a race, and I know I'm putting all this in your mind, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, and I'm just going to sign you up for a race. That's what I'm going to
do. Just tell me a date and when and where.
Yes, be here. Would you sign up for a 50 miler? Because now you've done a 46-mile run. Would 50 miles be next, or would you go further, or what do you think?
Oof, tough call. I mean, it's weird to say that, like, oh yeah, like 50K, that doesn't seem that exciting. So I think 50 mile is just the next step.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd jump to a big 100 miler or 100K just yet.
Yeah.
But 50 mile is easily the next step.
Nice.
So we'll see.
Okay.
Again, I don't have anything on the race calendar yet, but I feel like there'll be a few more races here this year.
Okay. Well, anybody listening to this, please bug Karla to sign up for a 50-mile race sometime soon, so that we can have you back on the podcast in another year and hear about your ultra experience.
Sounds good, Adam. More than happy to.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, listen, thanks for doing this. It was inspirational, and I love going down memory lane and talking about the rim to rim to rim. So it was a pleasure for me. So definitely stay in touch. And if you ever come out to Colorado, look me up, because I know where all the good trails are, and I can take you on some good ones.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you again so much for having me on, Adam. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. Anytime.
Enjoy the recovery. Hopefully you'll be back at it soon, but like I said, this was a pleasure. So just, keep doing you. You're a cool person.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam.
All right. Talk soon. We'll see ya.
All right. Sounds good.